I start by hand, and at some point I go to the computer, and as you see, it becomes, you know, a keyboard text. But throughout, I remain fluid, and I'm always wondering, what's the best thing to put above the poem? What's the best title? What's the best first line? What's the best last line? You know, I've made lots of changes while I'm sitting there. I changed this line, I changed this word, I moved this around, I tried a different title. And at some point, and I'm not sure what cues that point, I decide to print it out. And then I usually leave the computer and I take that with me. So I go in the kitchen, and maybe now I didn't read the art section that morning, and so I'll start reading the paper again. And then at some point I think, okay, it's time to see how I feel. And so I've somehow broken the trance of being in the poem, and now there's a new sense of remove, an increased sense of remove, where I can go back and I can say, okay, now be the reader, see what you think. And then and I'll get an idea that I didn't have before, and I'll think, oh, this is a better idea. And so I'll start making notes on the poem or cross-outs. And then at some point it gets messy, and so I need the clarity of seeing it cleaned up and with those changes made. So again, I go to the computer, I make those changes. Maybe I'll start making other changes that come to my mind. At some point, I print it out, I read it over. I think, no, that was bad. I should go back to that way. But then maybe it's a dinner time, and maybe I'm going out and I have to depart from the poem in the computer. But that's a good thing too, because I go out, I come back, I've printed it out, I've left it right where I'm going to see it when I come in. I start reading it again. And I do this over and over and over. I do it for days, sometimes I do it for months. I've even done it for years, where I put the poem away because I just couldn't figure it out. So I think it's that kind of waiting for that idea. The idea doesn't necessarily come until you gain some sort of remove. The remove can come through time. It can come through a kind of willful taking a position of remove. It can come because you go and you read a book and you get a word and you think, that's the word I should have used. And now you can take that word to the poem. And at some point, I've read it, and no more ideas have come, and no more changes have come. And then I'll put it on my desk, and then maybe 3 days later, I'll read it, and if it stays, then it stays. And if not, then the process starts up again. So it's obsessive, is what it is. It's obsession. And I think that obsession is an integral part of being an artist. And I think that all artists are a bit obsessed, and that it's actually a good thing in art. It might not be in other areas of life, but in art, it's what makes art art.